City, listening to JasonLewisShow.com. John, welcome back.
Hi, good evening, Jason. I just wanted to say, I've been arguing with people with the liberal attitude against the guns or pro-assault rifle ban and trying to explain to people how there's only basically semi-automatics and automatics. And I think I actually turned around a couple of people because I argue pretty well. The one thing I wanted to say...
Well, here's what they're relying on, John. They're relying on people thinking that an assault weapon is a fully automatic machine gun. And a hell of a lot of Americans...
Everybody gets all their information from movies. So, that's, right. But one thing I was going to tell you, though, the AR-15, and I have a video on YouTube, Big Truck Series Review AR-15 with grenade launcher. The AR-15, yes, it is semi-automatic. However, either there's a loophole or something that allows you to get this thing called a bump fire modification. Mm-hmm. And the bump fire modification is an external, what is it called? It's an external stock that allows the gun that every single time it reciprocates, it causes your finger to actually pull the trigger even faster. So if you were to look it up, you can look it up on a break. But if you look it up, the bump fire mod makes an AR-15 basically the equivalent of an M16 in cyclic rate. However, it's not an internal modification to the gun, so therefore it's technically not illegal. Fortunately, that wasn't used in this shooting, because if it was, bump fire mods would have been made illegal overnight. But
have they ever been used? Wait. Have they ever been used? I don't know of one modification to these things that has ever occurred in any of these shootings.
I really don't think the only mods that have probably happened were all cosmetic, like adding flashlights and all that stuff. And like that guy, what was his name, Breivik, who shot up all those people over in Europe, and he had mods on his. But the problem, what bothers me is, I think like a rifle like the FN-FAL in 308 is a much more powerful, easier to control rifle that could do more damage and has just as large a clip. But simply because these people are so reactionary, they go after something simply because they're told basically to go after it.
Well, pick the standard Glock. Pick the standard. Think about this for a second. Pick the standard Glock handgun. It could be a 9mm Glock. We'll say. What's the magazine hold? 9 bullets?
A Glock holds about 15, and the SIG Sauer can hold around the same thing. If it's like a Glock 45, it holds like maybe 7 or 8. But you know what's funny? We're not even talking about those handguns at all. And cops use those. Security guards use those. Right.
We're all going to semi-automatic because they're technologically superior to the old revolver. But that's not the point. Of what I'm getting at is, if people are concerned that some weaponry allows a perpetrator to go in there and shoot multiple rounds a minute and kill people, you'd have to ban the average handgun. Because I can go in there with a 10...
Real quick thing. Here's the thing that I think... First of all, this gun legislation is stupid. But here's the thing. If you wanted to have a national database where they track people based on mental illness, I'm pretty sure any staunch Second Amendment supporter is basically going to say that if I were able to be classified as mentally ill, they'd be able to stop me from getting a gun, so therefore it's against the Constitution.
Well, there is a problem. There is a problem with that. On the one hand, let me be clear about this. On the one hand, those who are truly mentally ill, we're not aggressive enough in doing background checks on, and those who went to a counselor because they had anxiety when they were 20, those people are prevented from getting a gun when they might be just fine at 40. So it's the worst of both worlds. But in theory, no one would suggest the Second Amendment covers the right for children to have guns, or for the mentally ill, or for criminals for that matter. I mean, I don't know.
Absolutely not. But this nonsense they're talking about, they want to have magnetic gun rings. And the thing about it is, Adam Lanza could have bashed his mother over the head with a hammer, taken her magnetic gun ring, and then proceeded to go on to a daycare center.
This is exactly the point I made last night, John. I would challenge Piers Morgan and anybody listening in this audience tonight to name me one piece of gun legislation which is on the books right now, from Connecticut to Colorado, where they banned the gun show loophole, where they've banned assault weapons, where they've obviously banned fully automatic weapons and those modifications. Name me one law that would have prevented Newtown. And the only one you can name would be one that's would not enforce anywhere, and that is a ban on all firepower for civilians. Confiscation of guns. If you could implement the confiscation of all weapons from a little 22 to a 45 and make certain you had a police state that went around so Adam Lanza's mother did not have those weapons, that might have prevented it. You would be living in a totalitarian country, but that might have prevented it. But every single piece of gun legislation being talked about right now would have had no effect on Newtown. And my guess is no effect on Portland, no effect on Virginia Tech, and no effect on Aurora. As I mentioned earlier, they passed Amendment 22, closing the gun show loophole in Colorado in 2000, and 12 years later you have Aurora. You know what people don't understand is there's a certain mentality of these active shooters that want to commit mass homicide. They're willing to give up their lives. They're not afraid of going to prison. They're not afraid of the death penalty. They're willing to die, and they end up taking themselves out. So if they're not afraid of going to prison or dying in the death penalty or committing suicide, do you think they're going to be afraid of breaking a law that says you can't have this weapon or that weapon? That's the facetious nature of this entire debate. We ought to be talking about deinstitutionalization of the mentally ill. We ought to be talking about safeguarding our schools. We ought to be talking about the culture of violence in America. Important things. Instead, we're stuck on this. It's a political deflection.